Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Dicentra's fourth quarter regulatory update webinar. This will be our last webinar for the year 2012. Thank you for taking the time out of your very busy schedule. Given the ever-changing regulatory climate surrounding natural health products and dietary supplements, these webinars are meant to be a non-biased source of education and information. Just a little bit about Dicentra before we begin. Dicentra is an international leader in regulatory and scientific services for dietary supplement, natural health products, food, beverage, cosmetic, and OTC industries. You may always contact us at any time through our website, dicentra.com, or by email at info@dicentra.com. Just a few housekeeping items before we begin. First of all, there will be no question and answer period for this presentation. This is simply due to the sheer volume of participants. At the conclusion of this webinar, we will be sending you a satisfaction survey and ask that you take a moment to complete it. Your feedback allows us to improve on our webinars so that we are able to provide you with information that we know is important to you. Lastly, a recording of this webinar with all links mentioned during the webinar will be posted on the website shortly thereafter. I would now like to introduce our first speaker, Ms. Heather Van Blaercon, who is Dicentra's General Counsel and Senior Regulatory Specialist for Dietary Supplements. Heather will now give us her views on the dietary issues affecting the United States. Welcome, Heather.
Thank you for having me. Our objectives for this webinar are to provide you with up-to-date information pertaining to the implementation and interpretation of regulations related to dietary supplements in the United States and natural health products in Canada, and also to provide you with other scientific and regulatory information that has relevance to our industry. During this webinar, we plan on covering the topics shown here. In the United States, we're going to discuss the Food Safety Modernization Act's requirement to register food facilities. We're also going to discuss the defeat of California's Prop 37 and the status of FDA and FTC guidelines. And lastly, the increase in the FDA's GMP inspections and enforcement actions. In Canada, we're going to discuss the NHPD status on applications quarterly report, the NHPD's new approach to NHPs, and the NHPD's product and ingredient information, and also the consultations and regulatory initiatives. And lastly, we're going to address some key issues in the European Union. Initially, we're going to talk about the Food Safety Modernization Act, also known as FSMA or FSMA's requirement to register food facilities. The deadline is quickly approaching. It's within 1 month, December 31st of this year. All food facilities, whether or not you've been previously registered or not, are required to re-register or renew their registration by the end of this year. Congress established this requirement to provide timely information to the FDA for use in meeting its public health mission. There's been a registration requirement for food manufacturers under the 2002 Bioterrorism Act since December 12th of 2003. But this new regulation, under FSMA, establishes renewal registrations every 2 years in even-numbered years, and the first of which is this year, 2012. So this requires all facilities that are domestic and foreign facilities that manufacture, process, pack, or hold food for human or animal consumption in the United States. This also includes dietary supplement manufacturers. So again, I just want to repeat that even if you've already registered under the Bioterrorism Act, you're also required to re-register under the FSMA's new requirements. And you can do so either online, via mail, or fax. However, the FDA does encourage that you renew your registrations online, as it's more cost-effective, quicker, and efficient to accomplish it this way. There's no fee associated with any of the registrations or updating the registrations either. However, failure to register your facility or update them, the registration for them is considered a prohibitive act under the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. And also for foreign facilities, they're going to run the risk of having their product detained at the border for failure to meet this requirement as well. Next, I'd like to discuss California's Prop 37. We've talked about it in the previous webinars, and it's the proposition that was in California that would have required genetically engineered foods sold in California to be specifically labeled as being genetically engineered. This proposition was defeated on the November 6th ballot in California by a vote of actually 4.8 million voters voted no, compared to 4.3 million voters who voted in favor of the initiative. You can see on the slide that there was a significant distinction in the amount of money that was spent on the campaigns. $46 million was spent by companies looking to defeat the proposition compared to the $9 million who were looking to support the proposition. The proposition, although it didn't pass in California, the proponents of the idea of genetically engineered foods being required on labels aren't going to go away. The pro-proposition 37 coalition is continuing to pursue its efforts, and they're gathering signatures for initiative campaigns similar to those in California in Washington and also planned for Oregon. They're also looking to pass similar legislation in Vermont and Connecticut. And there's a national coalition campaign called Just Label It, and according to them, they're looking to take up these same issues with the FDA. Also, I want to take a few minutes and update you on some of the guidelines that we've seen come out. Again, we've talked about the NDI draft guidance. It is still in a draft form. In mid-October, the trade associations met with the FDA a second time. Really, right now, the focus is on two portions of the guidance, the one discussing the grandfathered ingredients and the part discussing the chemically altered ingredients. The possibility, there's been discussions back and forth, and everybody's working together to try to find a workable solution for these, and there's some hope that maybe the FDA will issue the guidance incrementally to give the industry some direction on how these key parts of the guidance are to be interpreted. But so far from FDA, we haven't heard any news in terms of when we can expect a new guidance to come out. Additionally, on October 1st, the FDA issued updates on green guides. This was how you can discuss their environmental benefit claims in your marketing and your advertising and your labeling. So if you do use those types of claims, it's a great guidance to turn to when you're making claims such as non-toxic, free of, or recycled content. Lastly, I wanted to talk about the increase by the FDA in their GMP inspections and enforcement actions. So far this year, the FDA has done 347 inspections, and they're continuing to express their serious concerns over the compliance they've been seeing in the manufacturing facilities, and they continue to step up their actions to seek compliance. They're going to be increasing their inspections and also increasing their enforcement tools. The passage rate that they're seeing is approximately 27% of those companies that are requiring no further action in order to be compliant. In their opinion, it's a terrible statistic considering that almost all Americans consume some sort of dietary supplement, and the manufacturing of these isn't meeting the basic good manufacturing requirements in their opinion. The number one concern from the FDA is the failure of the companies to do basic identity testing on raw materials and to confirm that the raw materials are what they report to be. The most common violation that the FDA is reporting is the failure by manufacturers to have the necessary quality controls in place. A lot of the common violations that you can see throughout the warning letters is that there's no in-process testing, no finished product testing, there's inadequate or lack of appropriate standards, and inadequate recording of results. Subpart E of 21 CFR 111 has been the part they've been finding the most violations. And that subpart, they're finding that there's no specifications created for the products at all, no batch records, no master manufacturing records. And then even in the instances where they do have such records, the specifications that they've created aren't even being met. Additionally, they're finding that the specifications that they reviewed are inadequate because they're missing the specifications for determining contaminants, heavy metals, and microbials. In the recent warning letters by the FDA, they've been indicating that they're going to start assessing and collecting fees to cover their costs for reinspection. And those fees are $255 an hour. And the reinspection is defined as one or more inspections conducted subsequent to an inspection that identified non-compliance materially related to a food safety requirement of the Act, specifically to determine whether or not compliance has been achieved. So if they've been at your facility once and they've written a 483 or initially or some other type of document that you need to comply with, they have to come back. They're going to charge you a fee, and those fees are going to be incurred on all the costs and expenses they have in coming back, arranging the audit, conducting the audit, evaluating the results, reassessing, and even collecting the fees for the inspection. And you can expect that they're not going to come out alone. If you get your facility inspected, there are going to be at least 2 of them out there. So you're looking at paying double the fee for them to come back and reinspect your facility. So it's very important to be proactive in this regard and make sure that your operations are in compliance. And this applies not only to manufacturers. This really also applies to companies that are just marketing, distributing product, and also companies who are ordering the raw materials and shipping them to their manufacturer for manufacturing, and those companies that are receiving the product from the manufacturers and shipping them out themselves. All of those companies have their own requirements under 21 CFR 111 in order to be compliant. And the FDA is also going into those companies that aren't even doing the manufacturing. So for companies that supply raw materials and labels and get the finished product shipped back for them, there was a company recently issued a warning letter, and the FDA stated that they were the ones ultimately responsible for the manufacturing, packaging, and labeling the operations, even if they had hired another person to perform those job tasks. They are expected to have the records related to the dietary supplement GMP requirements, including the specifications and master manufacturing records, readily available during the retention period for the inspection and copying when the FDA requests. They were also expected to verify that some of the finished product batches or through a statistical sampling plan met the product specifications for identity, purity, strength, and composition, and also were not contaminated. They were also expected to conduct at least one appropriate test or examination to verify the identity of the raw materials that they were using and shipping to their contract manufacturers. It wasn't sufficient for them, obviously, to rely on the C of A's from their suppliers. The FDA, we've been seeing, is not only conducting 483s and warning letters, but they've gone so far as, filing lawsuits in federal court against these companies, and they're naming not just the company themselves, but also the CEO and presidents. And recently, they've filed a lawsuit for injunctions to stop manufacturing and distribution. And also, most recently, a company entered a consent decree that had to stop production, distribution, also recall and destroy all the product. And this was a company that only had GMP violations and no reports of illness had been made. So as you can see from this, the FDA is taking GMPs very seriously, and it's important not to get caught in violating the GMPs because the repercussions can be serious and difficult to fix once the FDA gets involved. So at Dicentra, we're here to assist you in any of those issues. If you have any questions, we're more than happy to answer them as they pertain to your specific facility. Next, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Dr. John Harrison, He's a Senior Government Relations Advisor for Dicentra. Dr. Harrison is a Toxicology and Health Risk Specialist. He has graduate degrees in Biology, Toxicology, Natural Health, and Alternative Medicine, and diplomas in Homeopathic and Herbal Medicine. He managed Health Canada's Office of Natural Health Products in the formative years of 1999 to 2000. He's advised the Federal Minister of Health on Natural Health Products Policy and held other Health Canada management positions such as Associate Director, Bureau of Medical Devices, and Assistant Director, Bureau of Chemical Hazards. Dr. Harrison has an extensive 40-year federal regulatory and policy experience in the federal health and environmental domains, coupled with recent and varied Treasury Board secretarial regulatory experience with groups such as the Center of Regulatory Expertise. In 2008, Dr. Harrison published a book entitled International Regulation of Natural Health Products. Welcome, John.
Thank you very much, Heather. So what we're going to first of all discuss, of course, is the Canadian scene, natural health products. And the first area that we'll go into is the status of applications, that is, the Natural Health Product Directorate's quarterly report. And that is, of course, for the period of April the 1st to June the 30th of this year. So they did, yes, as I said, they did release this quarterly report, and during the quarter, a total of 2,748 product license applications were completed. 77% resulted in product licenses, 11% were refusals, 12%, the remaining 12% were as a result of the applicant withdrawing. 46% of the completed PLAs were pre-UPLAR, and 54% were post-UPLAR. If we look at the period when the Natural Health Product regulations began in January 1st, 2004, up to June the 30th, what we see basically is a 91% completion of the product license applications. So this did result in 36,160 product licenses. And in total, 1,817 companies have received a product license. The Directorate received 10,885 pre-UPLAR PLAs and amendments, of which 66% of the PLAs are completed. And the remaining 3,666 applications will be completed before February 2013. The Directorate received 18,732 post-UPLAR PLAs and amendments, of which 46% fully met the NHPD's pre-cleared information. That's a 60-day target turnaround, while the remaining 54% are awaiting the full assessment, which is the 180-day target turnaround. So here's some post-UPLAR PLA statistics, and when you look at them, you realize actually the Directorate is doing very, very good. We're talking 96, 99%. It's only the full assessments and that are not up at the huge numbers of like 99 and 96%. Moving on to the site licenses, of course, the total number of site licenses for this full period from 2004 to June the 30th, 2012 is 1,985, and 98% of these have been completed, and 98% of the renewals have been completed. Again, very good numbers, very good percentages. And for clinical trials, we see the same thing. We see 97% completed for the 390 clinical trials over this long period of time. So the Directorate is doing quite well in these regards. Now, every once in a while, this Directorate or other regulatory agents, what they do is they relook at how they're doing business. And there have been considerable pressures with regard to the regulation of natural health products. So the Directorate has published, they published a new approach, or I would call it almost like a speeded up approach, a more a rational approach, more risk-based. They published this in June 2012, And this addresses a huge number of areas in terms of making sure that these products are available to consumers, but yet still remaining as safe products. So one of the key points is that they're looking at a three-class system based on risk, increasing the review time, for instance, of the better-known products. They have the information, they have the data, they can move through this quicker now, but it did take 8 years to develop a lot of this information. So this is why they're developing this new approach, in part because of the 8 years of experience they have with industry. Second of all, the requirements and the pathways for the licensing of NHPs are being rethought. Third, site licensing. They want to relook at this to provide better quality assurance. And then what they're looking at is the inclusion of on-site inspections as one option. The next area is quality guidance for the natural health products. They're looking at reducing administration and aligning this with international groups with regard to quality. And finally, compliance. They're going into a compliance transition period, and so after the end of the unprocessed product license applications, or UPLARs, compliance, of course, will still continue to be risk-based, and Health Canada compliance promotion to assisting companies will really be the first phase of this. And overall, their published aim is to avoid market disruption for safe products. So, looking at this, the first general area, the three-class review system, they're looking at pre-cleared information, or PCI. They do have 30 monographs already, which the Directorate has put together, supporting this review system. So the first class, this is the class of what they call highest certainty. So it includes 75% of the products, and it's supported by this pre-cleared information from prior decisions over the past 8 or 9 years. Second class is they're more moderately certain with regard to the safety of the product. 24% of these products fall in this area, with at least one claim or ingredient supported by the PCI. And finally, the third class is the one of they classify this as the class of lowest certainty, and there's 1 to 5% of the products here. None of the ingredients or claims would be supported by pre-cleared information, but the companies do have an option of revising the claim material that they have for this third class material to be able to meet the pre-cleared information. And generally, an in-depth assessment is needed if there's absolutely none of the ingredients or claims are supported by PCI. So they're looking at the risk profile. They're looking at the inherent risk, the level of certainty. For instance, if you have a natural health product monograph with a high risk, but yet the risk mitigation, in other words, the ways to reduce the risk, is very good, you could end up really with a class 1 high certainty. In other words, less regulatory red tape for the registration of your product. Next, the whole new approach has been characterized by extensive consultations, and the Directorate is currently updating their documents to reflect the changes suggested in the consultation. Over the past 12 years, the Natural Health Products Directorate has been characterized by extensive roadshow consultations from the very, very beginning in the year 2000. I remember because I was present, and I thought it was a very good idea getting out right across the country and speaking to people directly and getting their concerns. So, with regard again to this new approach, another key area is this pathway for licensing products, making modern health claims, and this is essentially a guidance document. So under this we have evidence requirements based on risk, we have general health claims annex, And we have a combinations ingredients annex, and we'll say a little bit more of that. So the evidence requirements based on risk. First of all, there's a proportionate oversight, high, medium, or low risk. So with a high-level claim, this would require high-level evidence. For instance, evidence showing that a natural health product is able to be used to treat diabetes. But for a low-level claim, this would simply require much lower levels of evidence, such as a claim such as a natural health product soothes a sore throat. And then we have general claims, and this helps consumers access low-risk natural health products. And the principles cover such things as, quote, for health maintenance, or, quote, for self-limiting or minimally bothersome conditions, or for purposes that cause little or no harm if the natural health product is ineffective. General claims. Now, these are basically for the maintenance of good health. They could be reserved for essential nutrients. These are the highest levels of evidence. They could be based on an ingredient or a constituent. But one claim might be strawberry extract provides vitamin C for the maintenance of good health. Now, specific claims, they can be made based on the constituents with clinically demonstrated benefits. For instance, cod liver oil is a source of vitamin A to help maintain immune function. So claims that are effective when used in conjunction with other therapies are looked at. General claims for the relief, or resolution or risk reduction of low therapeutic impact conditions. Claims in terms of used in aromatherapy. The idea here is that the natural health product would be based on 2 aromatherapy textbook references, and pretty much the same for the claim used in herbal medicine, again based on a couple of references, and the general claims for traditional products, modification from the original formula or manufacturer, or practitioner formula. So the combinations ingredients annex, we were talking about that earlier. This is subtherapeutic ingredients. These are ingredients with little known medicinal properties, but in very, very low amounts. They're not added to confer product form or consistency. They're not non-medicinal ingredients. They provide an additive or a synergistic effect to the whole product. And the Directorate is currently reviewing these subtherapeutic their ingredient policy. Now, moving on with regard to site licensing as one of these subcomponents of the new approach to natural health product regulation. Currently, there is no on-site verification for natural health products compliance with quality standards. But in 2011, there was a risk-based approach to site licensing proposal. It consisted of a support for independent quality assurance. There was it considered less support for proposed regulatory changes related to GMP standards, and there was a concern about the costs to small and medium-sized businesses. So moving on with this new approach to site licensing pilot that the Directorate is working on, companies continue to apply for or renew their site licensing through the paper-based assessment, but they could opt to provide third-party audit as evidence of compliance. So voluntary third-party audit within the existing regulations is possible. Where critical deficiencies are noted, Health Canada requests the company then to undertake a third-party audit. So in terms of the consultations, they will be going on through February, March 2013. Then there'll be a posting of the proposed pilot for the new site licensing approach, and then by the late summer of 2013, a launch of this particular pilot. So the next area, the quality area with regard to NHPs and the guidance documents for this. They clarify that the license holder is responsible for ensuring natural health product quality. It's the responsibility of the applicants in ensuring completeness and accuracy of the information submitted. This guidance touches on the fact that it incorporates experience gained through the review of applications and stakeholders' communications. In other words, the past 8 to 10 years of working with industry towards safe products. And of course, because of all, I think in part because of all of this good communication and fairly sensible regulations, there's been a fairly positive stakeholder response received to date in this area of quality and this guidance document. So the draft quality guidance, it reduces regulatory burden on industry. This is a very important point, because this is what the Directorate is as it ages, as is becoming more mature, what it's trying to do is trying to reduce regulatory burden. This quality guidance harmonizes with other international bodies like the World Health Organization. It leverages national, international sources for quality standards such as the U.S. Pharmacopoeia. It appreciates that manufacturers have the most knowledge and expertise regarding the products that they themselves manufacture. So here what we're seeing in this guidance is less emphasis on the finished product. There's more emphasis on the need for appropriate quality control systems that follow GMPs. So, the schedule. November 30th, well, that's passed for a few days. And so, in essence, the end of the consultation period has occurred. And within this month of December 2012, there will be a review of the stakeholder feedback, and the natural health products people will revise the quality document, the guidance document, as necessary. And they're aiming for the spring to have a finalized quality guidance and have it posted. So the compliance transition. This is another important topic. The NHP UPLAR will be repealed. These regs will be appealed February 4th, 2013. And the annex to the NHP compliance and enforcement policy for exempt NHPs will no longer apply. So the natural health products compliance and enforcement policy then remains in effect. There's need for a compliance transition period. And this will be using a risk-based approach. So first of all, from the spring into about this time next year, December the 1st, 2013, this is essentially a promotion period, promotion and communication with regard to the compliance transition. This is where there's two goals that the Directorate has. One is to enhance awareness of the natural health products regs, to ensure the companies have what they need to understand and to comply with the regs. And second of all, the companies can use this time, this 9-month period of time, to plan and prepare for additional phases by beginning to plan for, say, phasing out of the distribution of non-market authorized product. So after this sort of introductory period or promotion period, we have a transition period, December the 1st, 2013 to September the 1st, 2014. That's a period of 9 months with regard to this compliance transition. The goal is that all imported or manufactured NHPs should have a market authorization. And only NHPs with market authorization should be imported or distributed. So there will be a phasing out of non-market authorized product. And this continues down to the retail level. And finally, the implementation phase of compliance would be September the 1st, 2014 onwards. And of course, the goal is that the transition period is completed, and then all products should have the authorized NHP or DIN-HM designations. Now just a few words about the CFIA, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. There have been certain initiatives. For instance, October the 17th, the Safe Food for Canadians Act, Bill Senate document S11 was reached on that day and was adopted by the Senate. So this is an act that focuses on basically the importance of safe food, and it ensures that the CFIA has more tools and resources to help Canadians have safe food. Specifically, the Act provides certain tools for CFIA to better protect Canadian consumers. It provides an enhanced ability for inspectors to compel food producers to provide information in a timely and standardized manner. Second, the authority for CFIA to require traceability systems for food producers by way of regulation. This is in this particular act. Together, these particular measures will allow for such things as tougher penalties for international activities that put the health and safety of Canadians at risk. So the Act will provide for a more consistent inspection regime across all food commodities and better control over imports and exports. Next, I'd like to, the third section is the European Union. And we have a few slides on this. The first is the European Food Safety Authority, EFSA, and one of their quotes from their executive director is, quote, "Europe needs a stronger EFSA and a stronger risk assessment community." Here, the focus is on risk assessment, and we see this in North America too. The risk assessment, risk-based work. And one of the reasons I think that this particular message did come out is because of all of the austerity programs in Europe that are going on, and definitely some of these will be affecting various organizations and authorities. And so at this point, many organizations are stating the important things that they're doing for the people in Europe. Next, it's a comment on acrylamide levels, and it's really a good news story. It was published 23rd of October, and basically acrylamide is a chemical contaminant produced during food processing. But for the what they're stating is that for the monitoring period of 2007 to 2010, there's really no considerable change from their last report in terms of the amount of acrylamide found in food. And so, again, this is good news. The ESA Europe noted that synthetic zeaxanthin gets the EFSA's thumbs up for food supplement use. This was published as news the 11th of October of this year. And the EFSA basically concluded that intakes of 0.75 milligrams per kilogram body weight per day for synthetic zeaxanthin as a novel food in food supplements, corresponding to a daily. This corresponds to like a daily intake for 53 milligrams for a person with a average body weight of 70 kilo. Don't raise any particular health concern. So that's essentially a safe level that they're quoting. So at this point, we would all like to thank you very, very much for your attention. And